The concession stand was a cinderblock box in the middle of a gravel lot, lit like an operating room. You walked to it in the dark and you walked back with your hands full and the food already going cold. That was the arrangement. Between 1946 and 1975, approximately 4,000 American drive-ins sold nearly the same 15 things off nearly the same board. 60 years later, people who cannot name the film can name what they carried back to the car. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. 15 lost drive-in snack bar foods that disappeared from America. Number 15. The foil-wrapped cheeseburger. Cooked long before you got there. Not a burger made to order. A burger made at 6 for a lot that filled at 8. Frozen patties, 4 to the pound, cooked in batches on a flat-top griddle. Processed cheese laid on while the patty was still hot. A soft white bun, no toasting, no lettuce, no tomato. Wrapped in aluminum foil and stacked under a heat lamp in rows of 20. A case of frozen patties cost approximately $9 in 1962 and produced 160 servings. The foil did the rest. Steam had nowhere to go, so the bun absorbed it and went soft against the meat. The smell when the wrapper opened was steam and beef fat and hot aluminum. People ate them in the car with the wrapper open on one knee and the window cranked down. It was not a good burger. It arrived hot in the dark. That was enough. Number 14. Frozen custard. The machine that ran all night. Not soft serve ice cream. Custard, which is a different product under federal labeling and behaves differently in the mouth. A mix of milk, cream, sugar, and egg yolk solids at not less than 1.4% by weight, run through a continuous freezer that pulled in almost no air. Drawn at approximately 18 degrees, warmer than hard ice cream, and dispensed straight into a paper cup. A 5-gallon container of custard mix cost approximately $4 in 1961 and produced 80 servings. The low air content is the whole explanation. It was dense and cold, and it coated the tongue instead of melting off it, and it went to liquid in the cup faster than anyone expected. Anyone who ordered it learned to walk back fast. The people who did not learn drank the last third. The machine was the loudest thing in the building. 60 years later, people described the sound before they described the taste. Number 13. Onion rings. The batter that came off in one piece. Frozen, boxed, and shipped pre-battered. No drive-in cut an onion. The rings arrived in 5-pound cartons and went from the freezer into the basket without thawing. Shared fryer oil at approximately 350 degrees, the same oil that had run corn dogs an hour earlier and would run them again after. 3 minutes in the basket. Salted on the drain and dropped into a paper boat. A 5-pound carton of battered rings cost approximately $1.10 in 1964 and produced 45 servings. The batter never bonded. It crisped into a rigid sleeve and the onion inside cooked to translucence and slid free at the first bite, leaving an empty golden tube in the fingers and a length of hot onion in the mouth. Everyone knew it would happen. Everyone ordered them anyway. The failure was the memory. A ring that held together would not be worth describing. Number 12. The pizza burger. 2 American foods solved with one broiler. It appeared on drive-in boards across the Midwest in the mid-1950s, and it was never quite a pizza and never quite a burger. Ground beef browned and drained, mixed with canned tomato sauce, dried oregano, garlic powder, and onion powder. Spread across an open bun half. Processed mozzarella laid over the top. Run under a salamander broiler for 90 seconds until the cheese blistered. A batch of pizza burger mix cost approximately $6 in 1963 and produced 100 servings. The smell under the broiler was oregano and scorched cheese, and it carried out the screen door every time the door swung. That smell was the advertisement. The board did not need to do anything. The cheese slid off the bun in a sheet if the burger was tilted. People learned to carry it flat with 2 hands. It disappeared when real pizza became available everywhere. It was a substitute, and substitutes end. Number 11. Fountain root beer in the frosted mug. The cold that came from the glass. Not a bottle, not a can. Syrup and carbonated water mixed at the head of a fountain unit and drawn into a heavy glass mug that had been sitting in a chest freezer since the lot opened. 5 parts water to 1 part syrup, chilled to approximately 38 degrees before carbonation to hold the gas in solution. A 1-gallon jug of root beer concentrate cost approximately $2.75 in 1960 and produced 200 servings. The mug is the reason anyone remembers it. Frost formed on the outside within seconds and took a handprint. The glass was cold enough to hurt the fingers on the walk back across the gravel. Mugs did not leave the counter at most lots. Where they did, they came back scratched or did not come back at all. The root beer was ordinary, the mug was not. That was the whole product. The theater did not make its money on the screen. Distributor terms in that era took a large share of every admission dollar, and the exhibitor kept what was left after the print rental and the lot expenses. The counter kept nearly all of it. Popcorn, fountain drinks, and candy ran at margins no other part of the business approached. A drive-in operator who filled 300 cars and sold nothing was closer to failure than an operator who filled 200 and sold to all of them. The film was the reason people drove out. The snack bar was the reason the lot stayed open. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We have more of this list. Number 10. The corn dog. The stick that made it portable. It existed because of the car. Anything eaten in a front seat with no table and no plate had to be held in one hand, and the corn dog was the only item on the board engineered for that from the beginning. A frankfurter on a wooden skewer, dipped by hand into a cornmeal batter held in a tall, narrow canister, then lowered into the fryer. Cornmeal, flour, sugar, baking powder, egg, buttermilk. 3 minutes in the same oil that had run the onion rings. Pulled out and stood upright in a rack to drain. A case of frankfurters cost approximately $7 in 1963 and produced 120 servings. The batter set into a shell with a coarse sweet crumb and a hard browned exterior, and the frankfurter inside steamed against it and split lengthwise under the crust. The smell was cornmeal and hot oil, and it was indistinguishable from a county fair, which is where most people had smelled it first. Mustard came from a pump with a hand lever. One pull, sometimes two, laid down a stripe along the length of it. People ate them standing at the counter rather than carry them back. The stick could be dropped in the sand bucket by the door. Nothing had to go into the car. That was the design. Nobody wrote it down. It simply worked. Number 9. The foot-long chili dog. The pot that got better as the night went on. Every drive-in with a chili well had the same problem and the same solution. The chili went in at opening and stayed in until closing, and it was not the same chili at 10 that it had been at 7. Canned chili from a number 10 can, decanted into a steam well and held at approximately 165 degrees for the length of the evening. Some lots added browned ground beef and chili powder to stretch it. Most did not. A number 10 can of chili cost approximately 95 cents in 1965 and produced 24 servings. The heat did the work. Water evaporated off the surface hour by hour, the chili thickened and darkened, and the fat separated and reincorporated every time the ladle went through it. The 10 o'clock chili clung to the frankfurter. The 7 o'clock chili ran off it and pooled in the paper tray. Regulars knew this. Anyone who came for the second feature ordered the chili dog, and anyone who came for the first ordered something else, and the reasoning was never explained to anyone who did not already understand it. A 12-inch frankfurter split down a bun that was never quite long enough, chopped raw onion from a hotel pan with a slotted spoon, shredded cheddar that melted immediately into the chili and disappeared. It could not be eaten cleanly. Nobody tried. Number 8. Orange drink from the barrel dispenser. The dome that never stopped turning. The machine mattered more than the product. A clear plastic dome with a spray head inside, throwing an orange arc against the wall of the bowl continuously from open to close, lit from below so the whole thing glowed on the counter. The agitation was not for the drink, it was for the display. A still bowl of orange liquid attracts nothing. A moving one, lit, visible through a screen door across 40 feet of gravel, sold itself to every child in every car in the front 6 rows. The contents were concentrate, water, sugar, citric acid, and certified color. Orange juice content was minimal and in many formulations absent entirely. A gallon of orange drink concentrate cost approximately $1.60 in 1962 and produced 128 servings. It was sweet and thin and cold and tasted like orange in the way that a crayon labeled orange is orange. Nobody who drank it mistook it for fruit. Children asked for it by pointing. They did not know the name of it and did not need one. The dispenser is what survives in the memory. 60 years later, the description that comes first is always the spinning dome, and the drink second, if at all. Number 7, the snow cone, the one that never made it back to the car. Block ice, delivered in 50-pound blocks and held in a chest under the counter, fed into a hand-fed shaver with a rotating blade. The shave came out as flakes rather than granules, packed by hand into a paper cone, and drowned in syrup poured from a squeeze bottle. cherry, grape, and blue raspberry on most boards. A gallon of snow cone syrup cost approximately $1.90 in 1964 and produced 100 servings. The paper cone was the flaw, and everyone knew it. Syrup ran to the bottom, the paper went translucent, and the seam softened. The clock started the moment it was handed over, and the walk back across the lot in the dark was 2 minutes at best. People ate them fast, standing, with their heads tipped back, and got to the bottom before the bottom got to them. The syrup stained the mouth and stayed stained through the second feature. Parents saw it in the dashboard light on the drive home and said nothing about it because there was nothing to say. It cost a dime. It lasted 6 minutes. Both facts are always reported together. This is not a food memory. It is a proximity memory. For 12 minutes between features, an animated clock counted down on a screen the size of a house, and several hundred people got out of their cars at the same moment and walked toward the same lit building across the same gravel. Nobody was anywhere else. The car held 4 people or 6 in a fixed arrangement, facing the same direction, at a distance from each other that no living room reproduces. A family that did not talk at the dinner table sat shoulder to shoulder for 3 hours in the dark. The food was the reason to move and the reason to come back, and it was eaten in that 8 feet of space with the windows down. That is what people are describing when they describe a snow cone. Not the syrup, the car, the dark, and who was in it. Number 6, cotton candy. The thing that was gone before you sat down. A spinning head heated to approximately 300 degrees, floss sugar poured into the center. Centrifugal force throwing molten sugar through fine slots into a metal bowl where it cooled into threads on contact with air. The operator wound it onto a paper cone with a circular motion of the wrist. A carton of floss sugar cost approximately $2.40 in 1963 and produced 60 servings. It is sugar and nothing else. Sugar, a trace of color, and air. It weighs almost nothing, and it occupies a volume out of all proportion to its mass, which is why a child receives it as an enormous object and consumes it as a spoonful. In the mouth, it collapsed instantly. There was no chewing and no texture, only a sweetness that arrived and then had nowhere to go. Humidity destroyed it. On damp nights, it went sticky and dense on the cone before anyone reached the car, and the lots along the Gulf Coast sold less of it for exactly that reason. Children held them up in the dark, and the paper cone glowed faintly against the screen light. That image is reported more often than the taste is. Number 5, the Dixie cup and the flat wooden spoon. 3 ounces of ice cream in a waxed paper cup with a pull-tab lid, half vanilla and half chocolate, held in a chest freezer at the end of the counter. No scooping, no machine, no labor at all. The operator opened a lid and handed one over. A case of Dixie cups cost approximately $3.60 in 1961 and produced 48 servings. The lid came off with a tab, and the underside of it was where the printing was, and people read it before they ate. The spoon is the detail. A flat paddle of unfinished birch, no bowl, no curve, wide enough that it did not fit comfortably in the mouth. It went soft against the tongue and it tasted of wood, faintly and unmistakably, and that taste is inseparable from the ice cream in every account of it. Anyone who ate a Dixie cup will describe the spoon within 2 sentences of describing the cup, not the flavor. The spoon. The ice cream was ordinary, the delivery system was not. Number 4, caramel corn and the popcorn ball. What the counter did with what was left. At close, the warming cabinet held popcorn that had been popped hours earlier and had gone stale under the lamp. It could not be sold the next night as popcorn. It could be sold the next night as something else. Granulated sugar, corn syrup, butter, and salt cooked in a copper kettle to the hard crack stage at approximately 300 degrees. Then poured over the day's remainder and turned with a wooden paddle until every kernel was coated. Spread on sheet pans to set. Some of it broken into pieces and bagged. Some of it pressed by hand, while still hot enough to burn, into balls and wrapped in wax paper with a twist at the top. A batch cost the operator approximately 40 cents in 1964 and produced 50 servings. This was the highest margin item on the entire board, and it was made from a product that had already failed once. The caramel sealed the stale kernel inside a shell, and the staleness stopped mattering. It went hard rather than soft, and it had to be broken against the teeth. Every drive-in that made its own sold out of it. The ones that bought it in disappeared from the memory entirely. Making something out of nothing was always the best thing the counter did. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. There is more on this list. Number 3, the giant dill pickle in wax paper, sold out of the jar on the counter. No preparation, no equipment, no cook time, and no skill. A gallon jar of whole kosher dills sat on the counter beside the register, and the operator reached in with a pair of tongs, pulled one out, let it drain for a second, and wrapped it in a square of wax paper. A gallon jar of whole dills cost approximately $1.15 in 1962 and produced 14 servings. It sold for a nickel, sometimes a dime. It was the closest thing to pure profit on the board, and it required nothing from anyone. The pickle was cold from the jar, and the brine ran through the wax paper within a minute, so the paper had to be held at the bottom and folded back as it was eaten. Garlic, dill seed, vinegar. The smell was sharp enough to fill the front seat and stay there for the rest of the feature. It was salt after a night of sugar. That is the entire explanation for why it was on the board at all, and every operator understood it without being told. Children who were given a choice between candy and a pickle chose the pickle more often than the counter expected. Nobody has ever fully accounted for this. 60 years later, it is one of the 3 items that comes up unprompted. Not because it was good, because it was strange, and strange survives. Number 2, the family chicken box. The one purchase everyone shared. By the middle of the 1950s, the larger lots had installed pressure fryers and were selling chicken by the box to carloads rather than by the piece to individuals. It was the only item on the board bought once for everyone. Chicken pieces dredged in seasoned flour, fried under pressure at approximately 360 degrees in a sealed vessel that cooked the meat in a fraction of open fryer time, then held in a warming cabinet in perforated pans so the crust did not steam. A cardboard box, a paper liner, a stack of napkins, and a roll of dinner rolls on top. A box of 8 pieces cost the operator approximately 60 cents in 1965 and sold for around $2. The box went on the front bench or across 2 laps in the back, and the lid became the plate. Bones went into the lid. Napkins went into the lid. It stayed open on the seat for an hour. The chicken was hot. The crust was intact. The pressure fryer did what an open fryer at a busy counter could not. 4 people ate from one box in the dark with the same movie in front of them, and nobody had their own portion of anything. That arrangement does not exist anymore in any form. It ended when the boxes moved to the drive-through window and the car started moving while people ate. The chicken is not what gets described. The box on the seat is. Number 1, coconut oil popcorn. The smell that filled the lot. Yellow coconut oil, solid at room temperature, scooped into a kettle and melted before the corn went in. Butterfly-cut kernels, popped at approximately 450 degrees, salt ground fine enough to cling to the surface without falling through, added in the kettle rather than after. A 50-pound bag of popping corn cost approximately $4 in 1963 and produced roughly 1,000 servings. The coconut oil was not chosen for taste. It was chosen for aroma and for color. It carries volatile compounds that vaporize at popping temperature and travel on air, and it holds the yellow that made the popcorn read as buttered under a paper cup light. Refined coconut oil also resists rancidity in an open kettle across a 5-hour night in a way that vegetable oils of that era did not. Every part of it was engineered. The kettle sat behind an open screen door on purpose. The exhaust fan was aimed at the lot on purpose. The popping started before the first feature ended, so that the smell arrived at the back row while the cars were still parked and the intermission clock had not yet begun. Nobody in a car in the last row was hungry. 12 minutes later, a substantial number of them were in line. The concession stand closed when the second feature started and was cleaned and shut before the last cars pulled off the gravel. If you went to a drive-in, drop in the comments which item you remember most clearly and whether you would eat it again. Because these were not good foods in the way food is usually called good. They were cheap foods sold in the dark to people who were already sitting still, and the smell got to them before the board did. That was the drive-in. That is what everyone is actually describing.